Hello there everyone, it's Nina Marie. Thanks for joining me today for another video. I am so excited to share the card that I've created with the Simon Says stamp and Pink and Main STAMPtember exclusive called Reindeer Kisses. I thought these reindeer with their giant heads and cute little accessories were just the most darling little characters, and I wanted to use them to create a scene. So I'm going to make an edge-to-edge shaker card, which if you know me, you know I love them, and I couldn't resist when I wanted to add some snowy effects to the background of my scene. So that's what we're going to be creating today. I want to show you first the stamp set though, so you can get a good look at it. This features 4 different reindeer and a cute little mailbox. I didn't use the 4th reindeer or the mailbox today, but they are cute accessories. And then there's lots of great greetings. There are coordinating dies for this stamp set. They're all detabbed, which I love. I actually ran across an older die set that did have the tabs on it, and I had never cut it apart, and it made me so appreciative of the fact that Simon Says Stamp offers coordinating dies now with the detabbed feature. It's so nice to not have to snip them apart. So I'm going to stamp my characters onto some Hammer Mill white cardstock with VersaFine black ink today. I am stamping that with VersaFine so that way I can sprinkle clear embossing powder over top. That'll allow me to heat set this so I can color these with Copic markers, because VersaFine Clear ink is not a Copic safe ink. But if you heat seal it with the embossing powder, then you can use it with your Copics. So for my Copics today, I've picked out some light E markers that I'll use to color in the reindeer. I wanted to focus specifically on coloring in the reindeer's heads because they are so large and round. I wanted to make sure that there was a lot of light color to them and then just some darker color around the outer edges. So if you notice, that's where I focused my coloring with that darker marker. I added that around the edges, brought in the mid-tone to help smooth that transition between the darkest and the lightest, and then blended it back out with my lightest color. Then I colored the antlers with a couple of darker E markers just to get some contrast. I just picked 2 colors and added some simple shading to them. Everything after the reindeer's heads was actually really easy coloring because the rest of the images are pretty small. So there's not a lot of space to do some shading. So that makes the coloring process so much faster. So I just added a couple quick colors here and there to color in those accessories, including the hot chocolate and also their scarves. The one reindeer has cute little string lights around its antlers, which I think was adorable. And then that's going to finish up the coloring. Pretty quick and easy. And so now I'm going to bring in the coordinating dies and cut these images out. We're going to hold them down with some washi tape so that way they don't shift as we run them through our die cut machine, because that's one of the worst things is when you've done all your beautiful coloring and then you go to die cut, and because you didn't tape your die down, it shifted. So I always like to make sure I tape them down so that way I don't have that happen, and that makes me much happier. All right, so I'm bringing in this die that I have from Poppy Stamps. I love this die. Look at the details on the trees. Aren't they cute? This is the Nordic Treeline die, and it cuts out this cute little line of trees, but it also cuts out the horizon. So I just cut that from some white cardstock, leaving quite a bit of that cardstock along the bottom so that way my reindeer can go down there. That's basically about halfway across the card is where those trees are sitting. So that gives you a rough idea of where this is cut. I want to color the trees with ink. You could also use markers, but I decided to bring in some green inks from Simon Says Stamp's Positively Saturated Ink collection and do a light coat of Dublin, then come back in with a Gian and cover some areas of the trees to give a little bit of shading. I focused most of that darker color along the bottom of the trees and also the stems, and then I also utilized some of that ink to add a little bit of shading to that snowy hillside. I thought green was a unique way to add the shading instead of a gray or a blue, which is what I would normally reach for. I thought the green would be a nice change. So I have this ready to go. Look how cute these are with all the little details on the trees. They're so sweet. So this is going to go on top of a scene panel that's going to be an A2 size card panel, and I'm going to ink blend over top of this with this really fun snowflake stencil from Simon Says Stamp. This is the snow pattern stencil, and I'm going to color over it with some positively saturated inks in both Cadet and also the new Crocus color. Crocus is actually a little bit of a purpley blue, but it's going to look really cool layered over top of this Cadet color. So I ink blended Cadet first to get that nice wash of color across the stencil. Then before I remove the stencil, I'm going to add Crocus along the bottom and bring it up into the Cadet to get a slightly darker blue. And that looks so cool. It's the perfect bit of shading that's going to contrast the trees really nicely, make them pop off of this background. So I'll add the Crocus about halfway up, and then I will come back in with my blue blending brush and just feather that out so there's a nice transition between the two colors. Then I can remove the stencil. We've got that fun pattern. And then I'm going to actually go back over this with my blending brushes. No extra ink, but just using the leftover ink that's on the brush, just tone down some of that white so it's not super stark. This way it gives a little bit of a tone-on-tone effect, and it softens the background so it's more of a subtle detail rather than in your face and the star of your card. Because this is going to go behind our trees, I don't want this stealing the focus of everything that's in front. Now this is going to be the panel that is within our edge-to-edge shaker. If you've watched my videos before, you've probably seen me do this and you probably know exactly what I'm going to do. But if you've not watched any of my edge-to-edge shaker card videos, I'm going to explain it so that you can make one too. I'm taking some double-sided tape and putting that tape around all four sides of my panel. So this is the back side of that snowflake panel. I'll press that down really well so that way I know the adhesive is attached to the cardstock, and then I'll remove the release paper from 3 of those 4 sides. Leave the release paper on that 4th edge still intact. I've laid this onto a piece of plastic. This is forming our pocket, and it's just a lightweight acetate that I can wrap around the paper and into the adhesive. So now we've formed a pocket that our sequins can go inside of, and that's why we have that open edge. I'm going to dump some blue sequins and then also some snowflake shaped sequins inside of this to create a nice assortment of shaker bits within this little pocket. So I'm just going to figure out what I like. I'll shake it around a little bit here and there just to get the mixture perfect. I'll also test it out with my Treeline to see how it's looking. Once I'm happy with it, then I can go ahead and remove the release paper from that final edge and fold that plastic into it so that way it closes everything up inside. You'll notice I'm trimming off the corners just to give a cleaner finish to the backside. And now I'll shake this up to get everything moving, and we have a cute background ready to go. I am putting some foam tape on the backside of my tree panel and then laying this on top of the plastic. The foam tape does adhere to the plastic quite well, and it gives a little bit of dimension off of that edge-to-edge shaker background, which looks really cool. I'm also popping up my reindeer. Now, if you don't want to have a ton of dimension on your card, you can skip some of the foam tape adhesive that I'm adding to the project and just use a standard double-sided tape or liquid glue to adhere things together if you're looking for a lesser bulk to the card. But I love dimension, and so I'm going to add 2 layers of foam tape behind the first reindeer that's going in the middle. And then the 2 that are going on either side of him, those have just 1 layer of foam tape. So that way they are slightly back from the reindeer in the front, just to give a little bit of depth to this scene. I do want to make sure to ground them though, so that way they don't look like they're floating on top of this white background. So I'm going to take a green marker that I felt was pretty close to the colors in my trees, and I'm going to draw some shadows underneath them. I used a lighter Copic marker in a similar green to help me feather out that shadow just a little bit so it's a little softer, it's not so harsh. You'll notice I left an open area along the top of the card. That's where we're going to put the sentiment. So I have some blue cardstock from my stash that I thought would match nicely with the colors of blue that I have on the background. And I'm going to prep the surface of that paper with a powder tool prior to stamping. Because I want to emboss this sentiment, I'm going to stamp with embossing ink, and then I'm going to pick out some white embossing powder from Simon Says Stamp so that I can sprinkle this over top and heat set it for a nice finish. There are coordinating dies in the Reindeer Kisses stamp set that cut out all of the sentiments from the stamp set, which is fantastic. So I'm going to use that to cut my greeting, and then that'll allow me to pop it along the top portion of my card. I did use a thin foam square to adhere that down, again, just for a little bit of lift off of the card. This is going to get put onto a card base made from some teal cardstock. I just wanted a bit of fun color behind this panel just to give it some interest and pull in some of the other colors from the card. At this point, I could have left everything as is because it's super cute. However, I love to add a little bit of sparkle. So I'm going to add some glossy accents to portions of the trees, and then that's going to give me an adhesive that I can sprinkle some glitter over top of. In a previous video, I colored a bunch of the new Tim Holtz Distress Chunky Rock Candy glitter with alcohol inks, and I had leftover, so I'm using that to sprinkle over top of my trees. It was this fun, pretty green color, and I thought that was perfect for a fun finishing touch on the trees. And then I did also add it underneath the reindeer for the shadow areas. I'll dump off any of the excess, and then you'll see how we have that beautiful sparkle now subtly on the trees and also the ground where the reindeer are sitting. One thing we can't forget, anytime you have a reindeer with a red nose, you got to make him look like Rudolph. So I'm actually going to put a little bit of a glow around the red nose that I had colored on this little reindeer in the front, and that's just going to make the nose look like it's glowing. So I was very carefully adding just a small amount of red, a little at a time, and then blending it out with a lighter red until I had the glow that I was looking for. I didn't want to add too much all at once and overwhelm my stamping. I was honestly a little scared about doing this because I was worried I was going to mess him up. But in the end, I was quite happy with it, and I'm just going to add a little glossy accents over top of that entire glow area so that way it's shiny because, of course, Rudolph has a shiny red nose, so we have to mimic that. And that's going to complete the card. I just love that little reindeer in the front. He looks so happy, and with those little twinkle lights strung around his antlers, he's having a good old time. Well, I hope you had a good time and got some ideas on how you can use this super cute Reindeer Kisses stamp set from Simon Says Stamp and Pink and Maine. This is a limited edition stamp set, so it is only available while supplies last. If you would like to find the stamp set and also the coordinating dies, I do have links down below in the video description and also on my blog, so you can check it all out. There are also still pictures over on my blog so you can see the card up close. And I hope you just had fun watching this card. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I can't wait to come back and share more with you all because I do have more videos coming soon with the upcoming Simon Says Stamp October 2025 card kit, and then more STAMPtember collaboration inspiration. So lots more to share and more to come. So I will be seeing you very, very soon. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful day, and thanks again for watching.